Welcome to the Big Book study where we will study the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Today is the 19th of April 2025. My name is Carol and I'm a recovered compulsive overeater. I will be your host for today's study. Our co-hosts are Maria F. and Sue L. If you have any questions during the meeting, please contact either myself or any of the co-hosts by private message in the chat function. The chat function will be disabled until 5 minutes before questions and answers. Please note that the Speak in Harlan G will be recorded for the duration of the study. However, the questions and answers session which follows will not be recorded. We ask if you can please make sure you keep your microphone on mute at all times during today's study, and please turn off your video if you're exercising, eating, or if you need to step away from your screen for any reason. During the meeting, we will post the seventh tradition, and this money goes towards the cost of our Zoom account, the cost of uploading our recordings, and we also send contributions to our intergroup, Arizona Serenity in the Desert, the World Service Organization. We will post a link to the previous week's recordings. These are available by clicking on the link that will be posted in the chat. And I will now very gratefully turn the meeting over to Harlan G. Harlan,
Thank you,
welcome.
Carol. Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here. And I hope that anybody who's listening to this, whether you're listening to it live on the podcast on this Saturday morning, April 19th, or you're listening on Podbean or YouTube or whatever that may be, I hope you're having a glorious, glorious day as well. The chapter that we're going to embark upon this morning is titled A Vision for You. And the reason that it is entitled A Vision for You is because it is a chapter whose purpose is to answer the question, what will my life be like without the drink, without the food, without the whatever, the drugs, whatever that may be, gambling, whatever. For me, being Saturday morning, I would have a date tonight and a threesome. It would be me, Little Debbie, and Sarah Lee. Sometimes we would invite Colonel Sanders. More often than not, Ronald McDonald would attend. Sometimes we would even invite royalty, Burger King or something like that. So I would always have a very special Saturday night. And then along came recovery and a very long process of losing weight, losing a tremendous amount of weight. And that was even more gut-wrenching in a lot of ways than anything else I've ever experienced. Here I was losing weight, and I was about 700 pounds, and I lost 200 pounds, and I was still, as you can see behind me, a 500-pound man. And so it was like taking a bucket of sand off the beach. I didn't have any credibility with people that didn't know me, that I was doing the best I could. The abuse continued. The laughing of children continued. The adult abuse continued. And so there were very little times in my life where I wasn't an object of ridicule. It is socially acceptable in the world that we live in today to ridicule very, very strongly a morbidly obese man or a morbidly obese woman. We are open game for those of us who have been over a certain weight. We are open game for anybody that has a wisecrack. We are open game to be laughed at by children, and life becomes a very, very challenging array of socially anxiety-producing situations. From public gatherings to funerals to weddings to birthdays to bar mitzvahs to christenings to confirmations to you name it. Life becomes extremely challenging to the sufferer of this disease. As long as you are over a certain amount of weight, you are going to have a long process of losing the weight. It doesn't go away overnight. For years, I was in a situation where I would be on a Saturday night in the basement of a funeral home in Chicago, and we'd be reading out of the big book, or we'd be reading out of the 12 and 12, and my friends were just a mile or two, a couple of miles away, dancing with girls and talking to girls and doing the things that are much more natural to life than I. Little by little, things changed, but it took a long time, longer than I care to even think back on. And so here I am today. I still have my challenges. I still have things that I wish were different about my life, but I thank God every day from the bottom of my heart that I have the life that I do have. Let's go to page 151. And on page 151, we are ready to begin the chapter, A Vision for You. For most normal folks, drinking means conviviality, companionship, and colorful imagination. It means release from care, boredom, and worry. It is joyous intimacy with friends and a feeling that life is good. But not so with us in those last days of heavy drinking. The old pleasures were gone. They were but memories. Never could we recapture the great moments of the past. There was an instant yearning to enjoy life as we once did, and a heartbreaking obsession that some new miracle of control would enable us to do it. There was always one more attempt and one more failure. Here is something that I believe is very, very different about drinking as opposed to eating. I compulsively overate. I compulsively overate for many years. However, I do not ever remember bellying up to the buffet with other people and enjoying it. I think drinking and drugging and even gambling and certain other addictions are more addictions that you practice in a social setting. Drinking at the bar and laughing it up and yucking it up. And I've sponsored many men over the years that crossed over from AA. And here is what I've noticed. They have all kinds of stories, usually sexy stories, usually stories that involve women. But they have all sorts of stories about their drinking days that make their drinking days seem like something that was a whole heck of a lot of fun. A whole heck of a lot of fun insofar as they could enjoy it with other people. Now, I did compulsively overeat in front of others many, many thousands of times, but never was I able to do it with the freedom that I could use when I was alone. I think that eating, even when you are young, is a solitary addiction to practice. When I was about, I would say, 3, 4 years old, maybe 5, I'm not quite sure. My mother and father were in the living room watching television, and I went into the kitchen and I got myself a bunch of cookies and I hid in the closet to eat the cookies. I was a little boy. I hid in our closet to eat the cookies. When all of a sudden, my mother opened the door of the closet and I started crying immediately. Now, why did I start crying? The reason that I started crying is I knew that I was caught doing something wrong, something embarrassing, something I was going to get yelled at for, something that I should not have been doing. There is some instinctive, inherent shame. There is for me, some instinctive, inherent embarrassment about getting caught eating certain foods at certain times or certain amounts of foods at any time that make it instinctively wrong to practice this disease in front of other people. I don't know how many of you can relate to that. The only story I can really relate is my own. I can't relate anyone else's story. So the bottom line is that for me, and I think I'm not alone here, the conviviality, the congeniality, the social aspect of eating is simply not there. And I think that the other addictions lend themselves to that for a number of reasons. They're able to yuck it up, they're able to have fun and tell jokes while they're drinking. Whereas as soon as I'm eating, I just, again, I want to just be by myself. I don't want you to see what I'm eating. I don't want you to comment on what I'm eating. And it is not my experience that those things are not going to happen. If I really let myself go in front of somebody else, there is going to be comments, harsh criticism about what I'm eating or the amount that I'm eating. So once again, before we leave these paragraphs, I just want to remain constant that for me, the conviviality, the congeniality, the social aspect of eating, excuse me, there was no real pleasure, even in the old days. The only pleasure I felt was from the actual eating of the food. When I was a little kid, one, two, three candy bars, by the time I was done with about the second, third, fourth candy bar, I was feeling good. I was feeling good. The only problem is it only lasted, as I say, about 9 seconds. And then after that, I feel terrible, but by then the physical allergy has taken over. And I cannot stop. And as Dr. Silkworth reminds us in the doctor's opinion, any description of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. So I've started eating the candy, or I've started eating the pizza or the ice cream or what have you, and now I cannot stop. And the last thing I want to have is an audience. The last thing I love an audience when I'm speaking. I love an audience when I'm being, out there with people and so on. I love that. That's great. I don't want an audience when I'm practicing this disease. It's too darn embarrassing. It's too darn shame filled for me. I can't speak for others. For me, there's a certain amount of shame inherent in it. Let's continue. Now, that doesn't mean that if everybody was having, say, a candy bar or an ice cream, I could eat one or two, whatever it was, and that's okay. But I want more. I only want more. They're going on, they want to play, they want to whatever, do whatever they want. All I'm thinking about is more food, more food, more food. And one of the things that I think about when I'm obsessing about food is getting away from people. Getting away from people is one of the components for my binging. And I think that that scarred me to the point where it is very difficult for me sometimes to face certain social situations without that panic, without that anxiety bursting to the surface inside of me, because those old tapes of being laughed at, those old tapes of being criticized still play in my mind. I'm at a relatively normal weight. I don't eat that way anymore. I'm not an object of ridicule any longer. I haven't been for years. But for me, those feelings of anxiety, those feelings of panic will come up. And then I'm not responsible for my first thought. I'm responsible for my second thought and my first action. My first thought is, God would not have put me in this situation to be ridiculed. God would not have put me in this situation to be laughed at or to be chastised. Now, there is pain and there is rejection in life, particularly romantic kind of things, scenarios like that will happen. But I'm not in those scenarios because of extreme morbid obesity. I'm in those scenarios because I'm not. If I was extremely morbidly obese, I wouldn't be rejected romantically because I would not have been in that scenario. So there is a feeling that will come up like that with me, and then immediately, my other thought is, God would not have put you in this scenario to be laughed at. He doesn't want you to be an object of ridicule. We're on page 151. The less people tolerated us, the more we withdrew from society and life from life itself. As we became subjects of King Alcohol, shivering denizens of his mad realm. Listen to the prose, listen to the words Bill's using. They're beautiful prose here, beautiful words here. The chilling vapor that is loneliness settled down. It thickened, ever becoming blacker. Some of us sought out sordid places, hoping to find understanding, companionship, and approval. Momentarily we did. Then would come come oblivion. I can't speak this morning. I don't know why. Come oblivion and the awful awakening to face the hideous four horsemen. Terror, bewilderment, frustration, despair. Unhappy drinkers who read this page will understand. As soon as I came out of the restaurant, as soon as I came out of the convenience store, as soon as I got out of the scenario where these massive amounts of food had entered my mouth, I felt horrible. All I wanted to do was die. And if somebody would have said to me years and years ago that the way to feel like you love life and the way to embrace life is not to eat so much, I don't know that I could have believed them, because really, truly, the only way that I was able to function in a happy scenario was to load myself up with food, primarily sweet sugar, ice cream, candy bars, cake, cookies, you name it, or Doritos, pizza, whatever it was, or the other side, is the salty stuff, the chips and the things like that. So the only way I knew to cope was to be absolutely loaded on food. And the more I was loaded on food, the less people accepted me. The less people accepted me, the more I ate. The more I ate, the less people tolerated me. And as I've said before, I became not only an object of ridicule to others, but here is the most dangerous part of that scenario. The more, and I'll duck down a little bit here so you can see the guy behind me. He's about 575 pounds. He's out there, he's in the food, and you can tell by my face there, I hate myself, I hate life, I hate everyone, even though I'm trying to smile and be congenial. All I wanted was to die. I saw no point to life. I saw there was no life in the food, and there was no life without the food. Now, here is the most dangerous thing about this, and this is what I started to say. Not only the less people tolerated us, the more we withdrew from society, but the more I ate, the less I tolerated myself. The less I tolerated myself, the more self-loathing that I would demonstrate to me. This self-loathing was like a poison. I couldn't think of anything positive. I couldn't think of anything that was good about life. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So the bottom line is, the more I hated myself, the more I distrusted the world. The more I distrusted the world, the more I just wanted to die. There was nothing about life that was any good for me at all. You could have showed me anything. You could have shown me the Hope Diamond or $1,000,000,000,000,000,000, whatever it was. It wouldn't have meant anything to me unless it was made of chocolate. If it was made of chocolate, then I could have appreciated it. But I could not appreciate a bird, a flower, the smell of freshly cut grass, a sunrise, a sunset, the beauty of other people. In that scenario where I'm eating my head off, my greatest joy in life was the misery of other people. I reveled in it. And my greatest misery in life was their joy, their success. And today, I can enjoy the success of others. I can revel in their victories. I can appreciate the joy of their grandchildren being born and starting to walk. And I can look at them and hope for the best, not only for them, but for me and for us as a collective group. I can hope that everybody has a good life and a good day and a good week and a good month, and I can mean it. And it says in the big book that even if I don't mean it, even if it's just words, say them anyway. Well, the bottom line is today I can say the words, God bless you, or I can say the words, I'm so happy to hear that, or I can say the words, I'm so sorry to hear that, and I can mean them. I am part of life at last. I am part of life because I'm not compulsively overeating like I used to. And I work the steps. I don't, abstinence doesn't treat my disease. Abstinence doesn't bring me to where I need to be. Abstinence is the entrance ramp on the highway. The real secret here is it's not just abstaining, that's dieting. The real secret here is I work the steps, every single one of them, multiple times every day. I sponsor, and as Clancy Imislund teaches us, we don't learn this program by absorbing spiritual information. We learn this program by transmitting spiritual information so that there is no scenario where mere abstinence alone or a weight loss alone is going to alter the way I think and the way I behave and the way I feel. I want to be very, very clear. So when I say when I'm not eating, I don't mean I'm just not eating. I want to be very clear. I'm not eating, but I am doing that and working all the steps. I have a sponsor. I am a sponsor. I go to meetings every single day. I'm on Vision for 2 hours, Monday through Friday. I'm on Scottsdale. Last night I got kicked off because all of our internets here in our complex and for a couple of blocks, all of our internets went down. So I had to get off Scottsdale. I had no choice. So that was something that did happen. But the bottom line is that I want to be very clear that mere abstinence alone will not bring about these changes. I have to be abstinent and work the steps. Very bottom of 151, now and then a serious drinker, being dry at the moment, says, I don't miss it at all, feel better, work better, having a better time. As ex-problem drinkers, top of 152, we smile at such a sally. We know our friend is like a boy whistling in the dark to keep up his spirits. He fools himself inwardly. He would give anything to take a half a dozen drinks and get away with them. He will presently try the old game again, for he isn't happy about his sobriety. How do you get happy about your sobriety? This is a very key question. The only way I can be happy in my sobriety is to work the steps. A dry drunk or a person who's dieting with group support or without group support, a person who's on a diet, for me, is miserable. I'm more miserable when I'm not eating than when I am, because now you've taken away my coping mechanism. Remember that we've covered this in the doctor's opinion. We've covered this in step 1. I'm going to review it here for just a second. Food for me and people like me, and assuming you, the 90 of us that are here, food for me was never the problem. Food was the solution to the problem. Food was the solution to the problem. Well, if food is the solution, what's the problem? Is it the food? No. See, if food was the problem, diets would work. If food was the problem, treatment centers would turn out 100% winners. If food was the problem, then hospitalizations and surgeries and them would turn out winners every time. Hell, you could go to a jail and lock yourself in jail and just eat abstinent food that they bring you while you're in jail, and that would produce a winner. But they don't. The reason that they don't is because the food was giving me an effect What is that effect? It is a sense of ease and comfort that comes instantly by eating the food. So it begs the question, what if I could find a way to live where I already feel better so my brain doesn't lock in on the sense of ease and comfort that comes instantly by eating the food? What if I could find a way to live where I already feel fulfilled and better? And that process of bringing that power greater than myself into the equation is called, boys and girls, recovery. The process of bringing that force of nature, God, higher power, good orderly, whatever it is you believe in. My faith is unshakable. I am not an agnostic, although I have pockets of agnosticism. I am not an atheist by any stretch of the imagination. I am a firm believer in God, but it doesn't matter what I believe. It only matters what you are willing to believe or believe. Do you believe, or are you willing to believe that there is a power greater than yourself? And if you are willing or believe that, then you are on your way. So that power is going to do for you what you could not do for yourself, and that is make yourself feel okay when you're not eating. Because when I'm not eating and I'm not working the steps, then fear builds and builds and builds. Guilt and shame build and build and build. Happiness will build and build and build. Negative emotions will build and build. Anger will build and build. And as those emotions get stronger and stronger, my brain will lock in on the sense of ease and comfort that comes instantly by eating certain foods. Because those emotions in my soul are toxic. I cannot handle them. I cannot handle the intolerance of others. I cannot handle the newspaper. I cannot handle watching the news on TV. I cannot handle that you are not sticking to my script. I cannot handle the fear involved in living life, the anger involved in living life. I cannot handle a day that ends in a Y. And so food becomes my solution. And then we just ask the question, what if I could find a way to live where I already feel better? That by the working of these steps, I feel better to the point where my mind does not lock in on that sense of ease and comfort that comes instantly by eating those foods. And once again, the process of bringing that power of the universe into this equation is simply and lovingly called recovery. And we have a disease that only a spiritual awakening will conquer. Once more, the compulsive overeater finds out that he has an illness that only a power greater than himself will conquer. Without help, it is too much for us. That one is God. May you find him now. Need I go on here? There are hundreds of examples in the big book that tell me that without the power of God, I am doomed and destined to a life that is going to be a prisoner to this food. Shivering denizens, the four horsemen that were just described. Terror, bewilderment. What does it say? Terror, bewilderment, frustration, despair. So for me, this is a situation that requires God. Whatever it is you want to believe in, or whatever it is you want to call that power greater than yourself, I call it God. Maybe you call it whatever you call it. It doesn't matter. As long as it's a power greater than yourself, you don't even have to believe in it. You just have to be willing to believe that there is a power greater than yourself. We're still on the top of 152. Someday he will be unable to imagine life either with or without it. Then he will know loneliness such as few do. And that's where I was at the end of my eating career. I knew that I couldn't live in the food, but I knew I couldn't live without the food. Thank God I was wrong. I'm doing just fine without the food, and I'm thriving, and I'm paying my bills, and I have friends, and I am wonderfully alive. I walk 3 miles a day, 6 days a week. I make a living. I'm not rich, but I pay my bills, and I am alive today without the excess food, and I feel fantastic. I don't sit there and blow gas 24 hours a day. I don't have diarrhea 24 hours a day. I don't smell. I take care of things. I don't have to live that way anymore. He will be at the jumping off place. He will wish for the end. I'm on 152. We have shown how we got out from under. You say, yes, I'm willing, but am I to be consigned to a life where I shall be stupid, boring, and glum like some righteous people I see? I know I must get along without liquor, but how can I? Have you a sufficient substitute? And we really got ahead of ourselves, and we do have a sufficient substitute. Here is what I will tell you. I love my friends. I do, and they love me. Many of them I've known for 60, 70 years. Some of them are very successful, very wealthy boys, very wealthy boys. And some of them not so much. I wouldn't trade places with any of them because their days are boring to them. Their days are boring in that they may be retired or not, but they don't have much to do. My phone doesn't stop ringing because of the wonderment of this fellowship, the miracle that is this fellowship. I am constantly going to meetings. Now, I used to do a lot of traveling for OA. I used to do a lot of out of town retreats, not so much anymore. I don't think it's because they don't invite me. I think it's because a lot of the intergroups really don't have a budget for that much anymore. They don't budget that much anymore because they can do it all on Zoom. There were times in my life, years of my life, where 1 or 2 weekends a month I was gone. Maybe not in December so much, maybe not in January so much, but in any other month, I was gone on the road 1, 2 weekends a month. One time I traveled 3 weekends in a month and I was still married. And my wife was very supportive of my recovery. All the things I could tell you about her inventory, which I have down to a science, I've taken her inventory many times, so I'm an expert at it. But one of the things I can't tell you is she wasn't supportive of my recovery. She was definitely supportive of my recovery. But one time she said to me, "You're traveling a little too much. Why don't you cut back a little bit? Once, twice a month is fine." And she was very supportive. And there were a couple times she said, "Don't leave this weekend. We have something to do," or "Don't leave this weekend. There's something with my daughter." So she asked me not, and that was fine. You know, I didn't push back on that at all. That was fine. But I don't get asked much anymore, and that's fine. That's okay. I love the destination. I hate the journey. You know, I've been stuck in many airports. You know, on Sunday night, you know, I'm sitting there. I missed my connection or whatever it is. So yeah, it's fine. I'm 70. I'll be 71. If I don't have to fly that much anymore, I'm totally good with that. But I have a great life and my life is full. Now, you guys are not in the same room as me. You're just on my computer and I can see you. But when I see certain people here, I'm home. Certain ones of you I only see on Saturday, and certain ones of you I see, you know, throughout the year. Dave B, and I've known Dave for many, many years. We see each other in January. Sometimes I'll go out to San Diego if he wants me to. I'll do a little something there. I think I was there a couple of years ago. Whatever it is he wants me to do, I never say no to Dave. But the bottom line is, what will my life be without the food? My life without the food is fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic. Do I miss the food? Hell no. Can I get there through sheer willpower? No. I have to work the steps. I have to be actively involved up to my elbows in service. I have to be actively involved in this program. You look at some of the people here, and I'm not calling out names. Yeah, I don't, I'm reticent to call out names because for every name I call out, then there's going to be someone I didn't mention and they're going to get their, so I'm not going to mention names. But there are people here on this Zoom meeting right now that you hear their voices on Vision all the time. You see them at the forefront of service all the time, and then others you don't. And look at the people that you see all the time. Do they struggle with food? Not normally, they don't. Not normally. There's people here. Some of you are from, whatever, and you're from Ireland, you're from Australia, you're from Israel, you're wherever you're from, America, Canada, whatever it is you're from. A lot of you are very, very at the forefront of service. And, you never have to wonder about them because they're going to be immune. They're going to be doing it. All right, 152, middle of the page. Yes, there is a substitute, and it is vastly more than that. It is a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous. There you will find release from care, boredom, and worry. Your imagination will be fired. Life will mean something at last. The most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead. Thus we find the fellowship, and so will you. I can't wait to get to the Vision Convention in November. I can't wait to get to the retreat in Phoenix in August. I can't wait. We're doing a retreat from this group. We're doing a retreat in Phoenix in August on the 8th, 9th, and 10th. And I'm going to see people there in Phoenix in August that I don't get a chance to see. There's not too many people that actually live in Arizona that are part of this group. This is an offshoot of a big book study that started at the coffee plantation here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And then when the pandemic hit, we moved it to a phone meeting. There was a lot of demand, people asking me, we'd love to listen to you talk about the big book. So we set it up on conference calls. We didn't have a room like, you'd think. We set it up on conference calls. Then when the pandemic hit, we set it up on a conference line. Then Lauren N., she came and she put us on Zoom. And she put these podcasts this Saturday morning on Zoom, Podbean, YouTube. I forgot what else she has me on. I mean, to the point now where you can Google me and I'll come up, Harlan G. Well, when they're talking in this paragraph about the fellowship being a substitute for the food, they're not kidding. For me, this fellowship is life itself, along with God, obviously. This is so much a part of life. As I told you, I love my friends. My friends are great, but there is a limited amount I can discuss with them. I can't sit there and tell them my heart is breaking. I can't sit there and tell them that I'm sad or scared or angry. They don't understand that. What are you scared of? What are you angry about? Who cares? Write it off, forget it. They don't do feelings, and that's okay. They'll listen, they love me, they'll listen, they'll say, oh, I'm sorry, maybe they'll offer some advice, which is usually not pertinent. But when I talk to you guys, when I tell you guys, my heart is really hurting. This has been a tough year. I got dumped at the beginning of the year. My friend died on March 15th. This has been a hell of a bad year for me so far. I hope it turns around. We can discuss things at length, at depth, that I can't discuss with them. They know me, I know them, I knew their parents, I knew grandparents, I knew everything, whatever. They don't do the feelings, they don't do that, but you guys do. I have a place to go where I may not know you that well. I may never have met you. There are friends that I have in this program because of Zoom. I've never met you. I've never met you. Now, some of you, through the miracle of conventions and the miracle of retreats and things like that, yes, I've met you. But we don't have a day to day or even year to year existence. But I love you and you're part of my life. You may not be part of my life in the flesh, but you are definitely part of what I look forward to talking to when I call you on the phone. You are part of who I look forward to being with when we have a convention or a retreat. So, this fellowship, this way of life, this has been the greatest miracle of my life. Other than being born and having my kid to be born, this is the greatest miracle I have ever witnessed in my life. I am so lucky to be able to say to you today that today I am a grateful compulsive overeater. I never thought I would ever say that. I used to hear people in the 80s say that, because I came in 79. In 79 and most of the 80s, I would hear, "Hi, I'm so and so, and I'm a grateful compulsive overeater." And I used to say to myself, maybe you need for me to hit you with a bat in the head so that you'll wake up and smell the coffee, because obviously you're nuts. What are you grateful for? We're sitting here in the basement of a funeral home, or we're sitting here in the basement of a church, or we're sitting here in the doctor's dining room of a hospital. And what are you so grateful for? What is so wonderful about this? Well, I was yet to find out. Today, I am a grateful compulsive overeater. Yes, I've missed out on a lot. Yes, I've missed out on decades of my life. Yes, I wish that I didn't miss out. Yes, I wish I was retired. Yes, I wish I was with someone romantically, but I'm not. So, but I am grateful to be a compulsive overeater because it put me in touch with God. God brought me to OA. OA brought me to God. I'll say that again. God brought me to OA. OA brought me to God. But beyond God, what about God's children, meaning you? You guys are the greatest way of life imaginable because you give me that gift where for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I am not thinking about poor Harlan. Poor me. I can think about what's going on with you, and it gets me out of myself. And I used to think that the greatest gift would be that you would give me $1 million. I used to think that the greatest gift would be that you would whatever for me. Today, I know that the greatest gift that you can give me is to allow me into your life enough so that for 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, I'm not obsessing about poor Harlan, that I can think about you and we can talk about you and we can get away from this lethal, fatal self involvement of me, 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 me. Page 152. How is this to come about, you ask? Where am I to find these people? Well, it's easier than ever, boys and girls. You are going to meet these new friends in your own community near you. Alcoholics are dying helplessly like people in a sinking ship. If you live in a large place, there are hundreds, high and low, rich and poor. These are future fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. Among them, you will make lifelong friends. I've proven that to be true. You will be bound to them with new and wonderful ties, for you will escape disaster together and you will commence shoulder to shoulder your common journey. Then you will know what it means to give of yourself, that others may survive and rediscover life. You will learn the full meaning of love thy neighbor as thyself. We speak and understand intimately the language of the heart. I've been speaking English my entire life, Abyssal Yiddish, but English my entire life. And I speak English to the point where for 70 years it has been my main language. There are not too many days where I don't hear a word I've never heard before, and I have to look it up in the dictionary online. There are words I don't know. When it comes to the language of the heart, I have cried with you, I have laughed with you, I have celebrated with you, we have hugged each other, and we have communicated in a depth, in a way that most people cannot or will not be able ever to communicate. The 4 romantic relationships that I've had in my life were all with women that I met here in OA. I hope that I meet someone else, and secretly I hope that they are from here, because how would I spend my life with someone who did not speak this language? How would I spend my life with someone who wasn't familiar with this way of life? I simply do not know. I simply do not know. So it is a language of the heart that we speak, and I listen and I hear and we share, and there isn't a day that goes by I don't learn a little bit more about who I am by hugging you, by listening to you, by letting you share your intimate, most innermost feelings with me, and I with you. This is the greatest way of life imaginable. There are 3 things that I was told years ago by a friend who was a doctor and a lawyer and a rabbi and a published author. Um, he said to me one time, there's 3 secrets to living a longer and better life. Number 1, eat less. Number 2, move more. And number 3, surround yourself with positive people. In my life, I've never run into more positive people than the people from OA, the people from the 12-step rooms. It doesn't necessarily have to be OA. It could be AA, it could be whatever it is, NA, whatever it is, Al-Anon. It doesn't matter. As long as you're in this way of life, you will be able to speak and understand the language of the heart. You will understand emotion at depth as few do. It is the greatest way of life imaginable. I'm on page 153. It may seem incredible that these men are about to become happy, respected, and useful once more. How can they rise out of such misery, bad repute, and hopelessness? The practical answer is that since these things have happened among us, they can happen with you. Should you wish them above all else and be willing to make use of our experience, we are sure they will come. The age of miracles is still with us. Our own recovery proves that. You look at me, or you look at some of us who are here. If you're new or if you're struggling, you look at some of us and you say to yourself, yes, certainly God has smiled on him. Certainly God has smiled on her. Let me assure you of something. He loves you no less than he loves me. You are going to hear about miracles in this OA program that are beyond your wildest comprehension. And one of those miracles, if you steep yourself in service and you take this program to the number 1 thing in your life without exception. Now, I never said this has to be the only thing in your life. It just has to be number 1. I'm not saying don't watch your children. I'm not saying don't work your job. I'm not saying don't be a spouse. I'm not saying isolate yourself. I'm not saying live to recover. I want you to recover to live. But this has to be number 1. And if you look at the people that you most think God has smiled upon, every one of us has made this endeavor, made this work, made this way of life the most important thing in our lives without exception. I still have friends. I still love the Cubs. I watch them. I still love football. I still love baseball. I still love college basketball. I still love watching things and doing things with my friends. And hopefully I'll be dating sometime. Who knows? Hopefully I'll, whatever. And that's all good. But the bottom line is nothing comes before my program. I did step 11 this morning before I did anything else. I took a phone call from someone that lives in Scotland. I woke up, I took a phone call, I took another phone call and another phone call, and then I did step 11 because those phone calls were program related. If they were not program related, I let them go to voicemail and I proceed with my morning. I don't allow anything to stand in the way of my usefulness to God and other people. So if you want what we have, this is a kind of a roundabout way of saying, if you want what we have, do what we do. If you want what we have, do what we do. There are people, I could name them. There are people on this podcast, on this Zoom room right now. Every time I open up my Zoom for the Scottsdale meetings, Sunday through Friday, that person is either reading something, leading something, making something happen, or preventing something from happening. Every time I listen to Vision, there are people that are here now. Every time I listen to Vision, these people are sharing, moderating, doing service of some sort or another. Who organizes the retreats? Who organizes the conventions? Same group of people. As my friend Susan G says in California, get yourself to the middle of the pack. Do you know how penguins survive the chilling temperatures of Antarctica? They rotate so that you get your time on the edges, which is the coldest because you're absorbing that blast of wind. You have to put your time in on the outside. But then they rotate around so that at some point you're in the middle of the flock. You're in the middle of that flock and you're as warm, you're as snug as a bunny in a rug. You got all these other penguins blocking the wind for you and they rotate around. They rotate. Jump in there. Jump in there and grab your spot. Jump in there and demand your spot. When they need something read, read it. When they need something done, do it. You don't have to be abstinent to read the steps. You don't have to be abstinent to read the traditions. You don't have to be abstinent to pray with everybody at the end of the meeting. You don't have to be abstinent to read page 164. All you got to do is get yourself in that middle of that flock. And that's how penguins survive the horrible winters of Antarctica. They rotate around and they spend their time on the outside where it's coldest, and then they spend time on the inside where it's warm and fuzzy and nice. That's how they do it. Get in there. Get your place in line. Get your place in line. Let's continue. Page 153. Our hope is that when this chip of a book is launched on the world tide of alcoholism, defeated drinkers will seize upon it to follow its suggestions. Many, we are sure, will rise to their feet and march on. They will approach still other sick ones, and fellowships of Alcoholics Anonymous may spring up in each city and hamlet, havens for those who must find a way out. We are now in a different direction. Up until 2020, the only meetings I knew about were on the phone or live. And I think that there is something said when we sort of lose those live meetings. For one thing, people aren't donating as much as they used to because there are many of you who have come in the last 5 years. You've never been in a room where we pass the basket. When we talk about seventh tradition, you're not really sure what that even is. And so donations have fallen way off. But we are now in meetings. I'm in meetings, and so are some of the, I could name their names. They're with me every day. We're in meetings with people. We just heard a speaker yesterday from Australia. And we have somebody that comes to our meeting regularly from New Zealand. and we have people here from Ireland, and we have people here from Israel, and we have one at least from Scotland, and we have people here from England, and we have people here from all over the place, from Dublin, Georgia to Dublin, Ireland, from whatever to whatever, Oklahoma and Kansas, and I'm in Arizona, and God knows we have people, lots of people here from California and all over, all over the world. And so we can come together in this way, and we can be 100 of us that we are today. And, a big meeting for me when I was young in OA was 150, 200 people, because we had the treatment centers that were very active, and they were spitting out people and bringing people to our meetings. So meetings were much bigger in those days. Now a big meeting might be 10, 15 people. That's a big meeting, live meeting. And they're much smaller than the Zoom meetings. So the bottom line is that things are different, but I look forward to seeing these people every single day. You are a gift in my life. If you're on the Scottsdale meetings, or you're here, or your Vision, or whatever you are a definite gift in my life. And I hope that in some small way, I have also contributed to you. Maybe something I've said has helped you out a little bit. Maybe something I said, sort of triggered something from within you. So that's very important too. One more chapter, and then we'll open her up. I'm on page 153. In the chapter Working with Others, you gathered an idea of how we approach and aid others to health. Suppose now that through you, several families have adopted this way of life, and that means sponsorship. You will want to know more of how to proceed from that point. Perhaps the best way of treating you to a glimpse of your future will be to describe the growth of the fellowship among us. Here is a brief account. We're going to do that next week. We're going to go into that growth of the fellowship. You're not going to want to miss next week. Next week is going to be lots of history, lots of really, really good things that you're not going to want to miss. So the bottom line is, we have for today, we've talked about life in the food, and we've talked about life in the food as being horrible. How do I know it's horrible? Well, I've lived it, but how do I know it's horrible for you? Well, if it wasn't, you wouldn't be here now. Now, would you? You wouldn't be here. If life was so wonderful in the food, you would be out at Dunkin' Donuts right now, or God knows where, or what's the name of the place in Canada? Tim Hortons. You'd be out there in Canada, Tim Hortons. Is that the donut coffee place? The guy had a cup of coffee in the NHL, and he started this. I think he's dead now, but he started this chain of coffee and donuts and stuff. Man, the guy did, he was smart. He parlayed his money into something like these donut shops. And man, they're ubiquitous in Canada. I've done 3 things in Canada: Winnipeg, Toronto, and Edmonton in Canada. And I think there's a law. There's a Tommy Hortons like every 5 feet in Canada. I think it's a law that every 5 feet they have to have another one, and in all these places. But all right, let's open it up 2 minutes early today, and I'm going to give you back to